Welcome, friends. So, this will be our second episode in the series of Agile Principle Practice and Mindset. And I'm sure you might have seen the first episode. If you have not, I have put the link in the description below. Make sure that you watch that. It was just an introduction of Agile. And now, today, we'll talk about a bit more detail about what are the Agile Manifesto principles, how they are formulated, what kind of structure they follow, and how can we get the real benefit of the principle. So before we go further, let me quickly help you out in terms of or share what a principle mean. So principles are guardrails or guidance for us to perform. So this principle will help us to do the practice of agile in much more informed and with understanding. So there are actually 12 agile principles, and these principles were created, as I mentioned in the previous episode as well, that these are were created in 2001, and at that point in time, a lot of focus was there on software development because we were moving from traditional waterfall to agile ways of working, and that is why whenever you see the word software, you can use or replace it instead with solutions or systems, because that makes a complete sense in my view. And so let's go one by one. Let's talk about the first principle of agile, which talks about satisfying customer. So our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Now, there are few things to keep in mind here. One thing is our highest priority is to satisfy customer. Through how we'll do that, we have to make sure that we deliver things as early as possible and continuously. And continuously, we have to deliver valuable software or valuable solution. It's not that we have to do it once in a while, kind of. Okay, and neither we have to do it too late. So that is the first principle, which is the base of most of our agile operations. The second one, which follow the first one, is welcoming change, and that sounds quite important, as welcoming changing requirement even late in the development. But if we stop reading this principle here and we don't go further, it appears that agile means that we can change a requirement whenever we want. And this is one of the anti-pattern in agile, where people think that because we are working in agile, we can change a requirement whenever we like. We don't have to think upfront, and that is the benefit of agile. But let's go to the second part of the principle, which clarify what kind of changes we are talking about. So the second part of this principle talk about the agile process harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. So unless we find that the change is critical, crucial, important for the customer, for our business, for our product, we should not be changing it. We should wait at least for the next iteration or next sprint, because that is what agile talks about in the manifesto. It talks about responding to change and not reacting to change, and that is what is highlighted by this principle. The third principle talks about delivery. How to deliver working system or software frequently, from a couple of weeks to couple of months, with a preference for a shorter time scale. And this is really important, because if you look at agile delivery, we have a mindset that it has to be 2 weeks or earlier than that. And usually the teams who are delivering softwares or systems in, say, 6 months time, and when they see that, oh, agile means that we have to deliver every 2 weeks, it becomes a bit of a concern for people, because they don't understand how will change from 6 months to 2 weeks. But look at the principle. It talks about from couple of weeks to couple of months, with a preference for a shorter time scale. So as we go along, as we improve, as we become more mature in the agile practice, we should try to make it as fast as possible. And there are companies, there are teams who work in a sprint of 1 week. They work in a sprint of couple of days. and that's fine. That's how they have matured over time. Okay, so that is how we have to look at this principle, but this will make the practice more valuable and complete. The fourth principle talk about work, and what it says is that the business people and developer must work together daily throughout the project. It means that the business connect has to be there on a daily basis. There has to be a way in which the team, the technical team, connects with the business, with the market, with the customer voice as frequently as possible and almost like daily. And that is the reason the product owner role, which is one of the critical role in the agile team, and I'll talk about that in the later episode, but that is the role which enable the team to get connected with the business or with the customer as frequently and as regularly as possible. So these are the first four agile principles. Those are important, and let me go through the rest, and then we'll in the next episode we'll do a deeper dive on how to implement and how to practice this principle effectively. So let me talk with the next principle, which talks about now. These principles are around. The first principle talks about motivation, how to build project around motivated individual, give them the environment and the support they need, and trust them to get the job done. So this principle talks quite a bit. Yeah. So it talks about we need to build projects around motivated individual. It is not enough that we get people, and we need people with the right attitude. We don't want people with a closed mindset or people with a fixed mindset trying to get into this new style of working. We really require people with the right attitude and open-mindedness and the growth mindset. But that is the starting point. We also want to ensure that we give them the environment, the culture, and the support they need, and trust them to get the job done. We don't want to micromanage them. We don't want the command and control kind of an approach where we try to manage them day in, day out. We should give them the right support. We should train them and then give them the autonomy they need. It's a very, very crucial principle which talks about servant leadership at that point in time. The next principle talks about the efficiency, and it says that the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. And this is very important, especially during the pandemic when people were not able to get into in the environment where they can meet people on a physical face-to-face basis. But still we use technology like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or different style of connect where people used to virtually work. And in the global economy, this is very common that we have teams which are distributed across the globe. So what this principle talks about, and we will also touch base in the future episode, that are these principles really relevant today? Do we need to change them? Do we need to tweak them? Or probably we have to discard some of this principle. But if you look at this principle closely, it talks about face-to-face conversation. It doesn't mean that we have to be in the same room. It doesn't mean that we have to be in an environment where we are physical face-to-face. Yes, that is the most efficient and effective way. But even the virtual environment, like the way we are talking now, is effective and helps us to understand each other's perspective as much as we can. Yeah, the next principle talks about working software. And again, working software, working solution, working system is the primary measure of progress. Okay, and this was very crucial because in the traditional environment there were a lot of pseudo or proxy state which used to be qualified as progress, as the measure of progress. For example, that the requirement is signed off, and we used to celebrate saying that we have completed one of the milestone. Yeah, it was a good milestone, but it is not as effective as the working system. The next principle talk about is agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. And this talks about sustainability. It talks about how to ensure that we work in a very, very sustainable, continuous, with the same momentum and probably increasing pace as we go along. But it also talk about one of the very important factor is how to ensure that we maintain this pace in a way that it is regular, yeah, it's maintained indefinitely, but b, we are not burning out ourselves, we are not getting into a race with anybody. So if we try to think only about speed and forget about the the sustainability of the speed, will not be able to achieve the best benefit out of agile. Yeah, so we have to make sure that whenever you look at this principle, most of this principle has couple of clauses, and we have to make sure that we look at this principle as a whole. And many a times you have to mix multiple principles before you take a call what it tries to tell us. So that is very, very crucial. Now I'll talk about the rest of the four principles, which are basically the first in this lot talks about continuous attention to technical excellence. We have to make sure that agile doesn't mean that we just develop things which are less in quality or lower in technical robustness. We have to ensure that we keep a constant view, a constant focus on technical excellence and good design, because that will enhance agility. It will make us work faster. It will make us deliver things much more robust in the future. Deliver things which are more valuable and sustainable as we go along. And that is why investing in the technical enablers, and I'll talk about this again. You'll keep hearing me. We'll talk about something in the next episode, because agile is a vast topic, and I'm trying to cover few small topics every episode, so you don't have to spend too much time. You can just watch or listen to it in a span of 5 to 10 to 15 minutes max, kind of, and that will be my focus. The next principle is a very good one, and probably a slightly confusing one to start with. Is talks about simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. Now, simplicity means we have to make sure that we keep our solution simple. We don't try to gold plate it. We don't try to complicate it, because simple solution has longer life. It attracts more people. Yeah, if you keep things simple, it enables us to spend less time and get maximum out of it. And that is what this principle talks about. Keep things simple. Try to minimize the features or functionality you are trying to squeeze into a feature or your product, and try to maximize the list which you don't want to do. So focus on a very small list of things which are really important, and that is essential. The 11th principle talks about the architectural work, that the best architecture, requirements, and design emerges from self-organizing thing. So for the architecture, the best architecture to come out, and the best requirement to come out, or the best design to come out, and a bit of a history behind this, that in the traditional world, these three things were done by specialists. There were architects whose job was only to create architecture. There were business analysts whose job was to work with requirements and get those requirement elicitation done with the customer. And there were design specialists, experts, whose focus was only to create new design for. But now Agile talks about that this also should be done as much as possible by the self-organizing thing. You have to get the right people into it, and design thinking is one of the good example. And probably I'll try to have a separate series for that if people want to. And so please share your views in the comments, and if you like to have that kind of a topics, if you want any other topics to be focused on regarding the same subject, or similar subjects, let me know. Yeah. And the 12th principle is at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective and then tune and adjust its behavior accordingly. This is the continuous improvement kind of a principle. We have to continuously improve at regular interval. We have to try, we have to reflect on how effective we were in the previous engagement, whether it was iteration or whether we are talking about last release, and then tune and adjust its behavior accordingly, and continuously improve and become better. Because unless we do that, unless we get into that space, we'll always have a challenge. So these were a very short conversation on the 12 agile principles. Let me know in the comments which are the principles which you resonate with, which you think are really important for you to get into the agile space. Also share with me what are the principles which you feel are not really applicable today, or they doesn't make sense in today's style of working, and that will be a good conversation which we can have in the upcoming episode when we try to analyze this principle and see, are there practices which are connected to this principle, and are the principle really making sense in today's time or not. So make sure for all the future episode, subscribe to the channel so that and hit the bell notification so that you'll be notified as soon as I release the next episode. And please like this, share with your friends, because this series will enable even people who have not even started with the journey, and even for people who have gone through and have attained expertise. This will help us to share your experience through comments, or probably through a live conversation which we'll plan to have in future, so that the others can learn from us and our experience. Thank you very much.